Hi there folks, welcome to this week's weekly trade ideas, weekly report. It's Monday the 1st of March. Gosh, the year is flying by, almost spring here in the UK. Gosh, don't we need a bit of that. Right, let's have a quick look at what's going on. As you always know, with me, I always have to look at this momentum meter to give me a clue of what is going on in the currency markets. It's basically showing us which currencies are strong against which currencies are weak. And as a trend follower, I like to buy the strong currencies and sell the weak currencies. And you can tell a lot by looking at this momentum meter. If you take a look here at the currencies that are moving up, you've got the green line there. That's the greenback, that's the US dollar. You've got the Swiss franc, that's the red line. And you've got the Japanese yen, that's the brown line. These are all pushing up. Now these are the low yielding currencies, and you've got the dollar, basically the safe haven currency. This is showing you that the markets are becoming a little bit more defensive in terms of risk allocation in the stock market. And you'll see that the commodity currencies, New Zealand dollar, the Canadian dollar, the Australian dollar, these are trading lower to start with this week. Now that basically does indicate that the markets are on a bit of a risk off tone. Just look last week, the US stock market dropped almost 1,200 points at one point, showing a bit of a recovery at the moment, but still markets are getting a little bit nervous, a bit defensive in terms of their risk allocation. So this is really important when deciding what currencies to buy and what currencies to sell. This, as I say, is my momentum meter. Right. Let's get straight into it. Let's have a look at what we're doing this week. Okay, so our pair in the spotlight. We are looking at selling the Australian dollar against the New Zealand dollar. We've been into a nice downtrend. We've broken through some key levels of resistance, now back up to test these levels of resistance, and it does look as though we are stalling. So we're looking at a continuation of selling the Australian dollar, buying the New Zealand dollar, and we're targeting around the 105.80 level. Okay, we're also looking at the euro against the NOK at the moment. We're seeing at the end of a corrective wave in this currency pair, but the predominant trend is still down, and that corrective wave does seem to be stalling around these levels. So we're looking at that down to the next structural support down there at 10.18. Okay, so that's our pairs in the spotlight. Personally, I'm looking at a sell in cable. Cable is the pound against the US dollar. Why is it called cable? Well, because there used to be a cable running across the Atlantic, exchanging prices and so forth. I think it was on the gold spot price. But the US dollar has basically been buoyed by a number of factors. This is a safe haven currency, as you know. So as markets become a little bit defensive, there's a flight to safety into the US dollar. Also, US bond yields. Bond yields are smashing through now. I think we hit a high of 161 last week for the US dollar bond yield. That does support a stronger US dollar. And the British pound is now met a wave of selling across multiple currency pairs. You may have seen on the charts last week, we had spikes coming through at around 3 o'clock in the morning. Of course, all major currency pairs, pound got bid on, I don't know what it was, a flat finger or something, but then met a wave of selling. Pound now has come into a level of weekly resistance. Let me show you that on this chart here. This is a weekly chart of the pound against the US dollar. If you look back here, back to it was basically April, May of 2018. It's a weekly level of resistance. Last week's weekly candle put in that bearish pattern there. That is a clear sign of rejection. Often we use these patterns to indicate a change in trend, and the trend, as you can see, has been up. So this little pattern here at the weekly resistance, and the fact that the pound is weak across other currencies, may see a correction. So I'm looking at pound coming back down potentially in the next few days and weeks and so forth. Right, Max, he's looking at the euro CAD. Okay, so he's looking at selling the euro and buying the Canadian dollar. Canadian dollar has been buoyed up recently by the higher oil prices, as you know. He's looking now at the daily supply and demand zone of 51.60 going to be challenged there. We've seen the break and close retest the ascending support. So that's basically what Max is looking at. Paul VARCOE this week, he is looking at a sell in gold. Gold basically was really hit badly last week. Again, not helped by the rising price of the US dollar, or the rising value of the US dollar. So he's looking at a continuation of the gold sell-off, and he's targeting the 1680 to 1690 level. I, for one, hopefully, well, I've got a long position in gold and gold ETFs on in another area. So this is short-term play, long-term play for me. Gold, I think 2021 should see a gold strength, but certainly short-term gold to the downside is Paul VARCOE's pick for the week. Okay, so let's have a look at what the weekly has in store for us in the weekly data. Okay, so we always look at the data to see what's coming out. I'm going to just show you the calendar in a moment. But the main events this week are the ECB, Lagarde speaking. She'll be speaking later today. And then later on in the week, we've got the Bank of Australia, the Reserve Bank of Australia. They'll be making their decisions on interest rates. Remember, we had New Zealand last week. This week we've got the Australian Reserve Bank making their interest rate decision. Unlikely they'll change anything. And then, of course, at the end of the week, the big finale, we've got live non-farm payroll. Let's have a quick look now at the calendar. Okay, so if you go to the forexsignals.com website, you'll land on the landing page here. If you just scroll down to the bottom, you'll see all our free content. So here you'll see here the currency heat map. You've got the weekly report, which is this. You've basically got the currency pairs and the profit calculators, the lot size calculator. But what I want to show you now is, of course, the economic calendar. It's basically showing you the economic releases that are out this week. Okay, so here is the economic calendar. Now, basically, the way to read this is first off by looking at the likely impact that the release is going to have. So if it's green, it basically means it's going to have limited impact. If it's orange, like there, you see, that's a medium impact. And of course, if it's red, that means it's high impact. The markets should be taking note of those economic releases. And you'll see here later on in the week, so this is the 2nd of March, you see the different countries there as well. You'll see we've got the RBA rate decision, as I mentioned, quite a big event for the Australian dollar, of course. We've got Swiss unemployment later on in the week. We've got some data out of the Swiss as well. We've got the Swiss gross domestic product as well. That's basically coming in as a red, so high impact news event as well. Not a lot on the calendar front this week. As I said, you have got an ECB Panetta speaking. So look at the day, look at the date. And of course, by the way, another thing you can do here is if you actually click on one of the announcements, it will show you exactly what that data release is and how it's likely to impact the market. So there's a lot of education in there as well. So just scrolling down through, there's not, as I say, a lot going on. I just want to have a look at the rest of the week. You can take it out to 7 days. I'm going to show more. So I'm taking out to the 7-day outlook and see what is coming up, and you can just scroll through so you can basically plan your week ahead. This is absolutely free. Just go over to the Forex Signals site, as I mentioned. But the big events really are going to be later on in the week, where we have the US non-farm payroll. So again, not a lot coming out. We've got a bit of data out of China as well. We like to look at China data because obviously it impacts what's going on in those commodity currencies out there as well. So we always pay attention to the China data. Got it marked down there as green. Is it impact? Is it going to have a high impact? Well, we have to wait and see what it comes out to be. Later on in the week, we've got German PMI data as well. Markets always like to look at PMI data. And of course, later on in the week, we've got the all-important US non-farm payroll. We've also got some further data out in Australia. We've got retail sales as well. Markets love a retail sales number. It gives us an indication of what the consumer is doing. Are they buying? And if they're buying, it's going to have potentially upward pressure on interest rates and so forth. As I say, later on in the week is all going to come down to the live non-farm payroll event. Now, we will be streaming that live. Okay, basically it is the biggest event of the calendar. We actually give away some prizes on that as well. This month we're going for an unemployment rate of 180,000. Also looking at average earnings coming in with a drop down there at 5.1. Of course, when this data is released, if it's whack out of line, way out of line, then it could have an impact on the market. So if you're trading the currency markets, or in any markets, you really should be looking at an economic calendar such as that, so that you're aware of what is going on and the likely impacts that these can have on the markets. Okay, so that's about it. Now, as you know, we are streaming live around the clock discussing these opportunities and many, many more. We discuss the data releases as they come out, and we look for key technical levels on the charts as well. Is it going to be trend continuation, or are we going to see reversals as well? So lots going on there, and we discuss these in our live streams. You can take part, just click the link below now. I think you can take a free trial or something like that to join the fun. If you don't, then no problem. I will see you next week, same time. Have a good week.